Most people treat improvement like a passing phase. They chase it when they're inspired, when a new year begins, or when life feels stagnant. They sprint for a few weeks, then fall back into old patterns. And in that silence of neglect, the blade of their skills begins to dull. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai who fought more than 60 duels without a single loss, saw this weakness centuries ago. He understood a timeless truth: skill, like steel, is never permanent. A blade doesn't remain sharp simply because it was once forged. Fire created it, yes, but only discipline preserves it. Without constant care, the edge corrodes. Rust creeps in, not with fanfare but in silence, until the weapon you trusted betrays you at the very moment you need it most. For Musashi, this was not just a philosophy of combat. It was a philosophy of existence itself. Every duel, every morning of training, every brushstroke of his later paintings was part of the same creed: sharpen or decay. To him, each day was a whetstone, and every action a stroke across it. He knew that complacency, not an enemy's sword, was the deadliest foe. This belief is echoed across time. The Stoics warned that the unexamined life drifts into weakness. Bruce Lee famously said, "Long-term consistency beats short-term intensity," and modern psychologist Anders Ericsson, in his studies of expertise, revealed that mastery is not talent, but deliberate practice, hours of sharpening, repeated until skill becomes second nature. The lesson is simple but brutal. If you do not sharpen, you rust. Rust doesn't announce itself with alarms. It spreads quietly, hidden in small acts of neglect: the skipped workout, the half-hearted effort, the evening wasted on distractions. One day you wake up to find the edge gone, and the life you carry is no longer sharp enough to cut through the obstacles before you. Musashi's life stands as the counterexample. He never stopped refining himself, not after victory, not after fame, not even in old age. His principle was clear: yesterday's edge is useless for today's battle. So the question becomes, what does it mean to sharpen the blade of your life? How can we carry Musashi's code of relentless self-improvement into a world filled with comfort, distraction, and decay? The philosophy. Musashi's belief was forged not in comfort, but in the fire of battle. He lived in an era where hesitation meant death, where skill was tested not in theory, but in the clash of steel. In the Book of Five Rings, he wrote, "You can only fight the way you practice." This was no metaphor. It was survival law. On the battlefield, there were no second chances. A swordsman who practiced lazily, who repeated sloppy movements, or who trusted yesterday's victories to carry him through tomorrow's duels, would be dead before the fight had truly begun. For Musashi, complacency was the real enemy. Rust is invisible at first. The blade looks the same, feels the same, until the critical moment comes and it breaks. In the same way, the moment you stop improving, the moment you whisper to yourself, "I am good enough," the process of decay has already begun. Musashi saw this clearly. To him, self-improvement was not optional. It was not a hobby to be pursued when convenient. It was the core of survival. If the body dulled, it betrayed you. If the mind dulled, it deceived you. And if the spirit dulled, fear consumed you. The edge must always be kept alive. This philosophy is not unique to Musashi. It echoes across time and cultures. Bruce Lee, centuries later, would warn, "Long-term consistency beats short-term intensity." Anyone can train hard for a week, but only those who return to the grind day after day truly sharpen their edge. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminded his students, "You become what you give your time and attention to." Attention is the file that shapes the blade of your character. Spend it on distraction, and you carve weakness. Spend it on discipline, and you carve strength. Modern psychology says the same in different language. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that small improvements compound like interest in a bank. What you do daily doesn't just add up, it multiplies. 10 minutes of practice may feel insignificant in the moment, but over years it transforms into mastery. But Musashi's teaching goes even deeper. He didn't see improvement as a project you pick up when life feels stale. It wasn't something you could finish or check off like a task on a list. Improvement for Musashi was identity itself. To sharpen the blade was not merely to prepare for a fight, it was to live awake, to resist the quiet death of stagnation, to refuse the temptation of comfort. Consider his own life. Musashi fought his first duel at the age of 13. By 30, he had fought more than 60 men and never lost. Yet even in his later years, when he could have rested on his reputation, he lived as a hermit, painting, crafting, meditating, and refining his art. He wrote the Dokodo, the way of walking alone, as a set of guiding principles not for the young warrior, but for himself in old age. Even then, he was sharpening. That's the essence of his philosophy. There is no finish line. Victory is not the end, but the beginning of the next practice. Mastery is not a destination. It is a posture of constant readiness. In Musashi's world, the man who believes he has arrived has already lost, and in our world, the truth is no different. The practice. So how do we sharpen our own blades, not just once but daily for an entire lifetime? Musashi left no room for doubt. Discipline was the way. For him, sharpening the blade was not a weekend project, but a daily ritual as necessary as breathing. And in our lives, this sharpening must take place across three inseparable arenas: mind, body, and spirit. 1. Sharpen the mind. The modern world is an acid bath for attention. Every ping, every scroll, every dopamine hit dulls the edge of focus. We confuse information with wisdom, headlines with knowledge, and constant consumption with real learning. Musashi would call this intellectual rust, the slow corrosion of clarity. Sharpening the mind means treating attention like a blade. You must hone it deliberately and often. That starts with what you expose it to and how you practice it. Concrete practices that actually work. Read to wrestle, not to reassure. Pick books that force you to think. Rigorous history, dense philosophy, difficult non-fiction. Don't skim. Underline, annotate, argue back in the margins. Struggle is the whetstone of understanding. Write to refine thought. Journaling is not a scrapbook, it's a forge. Use short, sharp prompts. What idea confused me today? What assumption did I notice? What experiment will I run tomorrow to test this? Forcing words into structure turns vague opinion into clear judgment. Practice focused, resistant attention. Single task in timed blocks. Eliminate notifications. Set a real problem, one you can't solve without effort, and sit in it until your attention burns through friction into insight. This is deliberate practice for thinking. Use active recall and explanation. After reading or practicing, close the book and explain the idea aloud or on paper, as if teaching a beginner the Feynman technique. Retrieval builds durable understanding. Teaching reveals the holes. Build a problem journal. Carry one core question each week, an unsolved professional or personal problem. Each day, spend 10 to 15 minutes logging attempts, failed moves, new angles. The pressure of recurring focus compels refinement. Why these work? Modern neuroscience shows that mastery is less about time and more about quality of attention and struggle with difficulty. Repetition without challenge breeds habit, not skill. Focused struggle rewires circuits, deepens memory, and produces transferable insight. Musashi sharpened by choosing the hardest edge, then returning to it every day. Do the same for your attention. Choose hard ideas, return to them frequently, and your mind will hold an edge that cuts through life's complexity. 2. Sharpen the body. Musashi's sword was nothing without the body that carried it. To neglect physical condition was unthinkable for him, and it's no less unforgiving now. In modern life, the slow corrosion of inactivity shows up as fatigue, poor posture, emotional fragility, and a shrinking range of choice when pressure hits. A dull body makes a brittle life. Sharpening the body isn't about vanity or Instagram metrics, it's about readiness, the ability to move, endure, recover, and act when required. Seneca's warning: we should treat the body rigorously so that it is not disobedient to the mind, is a command for practical sovereignty. Make your body obedient to your purpose. Practical rules that preserve the edge. Prioritize movement over perfection. If you can't train an hour, move for 10. Walk briskly, take stairs, carry groceries without slumping. Small, consistent motion compounds, a daily baseline of movement keeps rust from setting in. Train functionally. Build 3 capacities: strength, endurance, steady effort, and mobility, range of motion. You don't need fancy equipment. Use body weight, loaded household items, hills, and focused stretching. Aim for progress. More reps, longer walks, deeper squats over months, not heroic single sessions. Breathe like it matters. Simple breath control reduces panic, improves recovery, and steadies the nervous system. Practice it before stressful events and after hard efforts. Respect recovery as training. Sleep is non-negotiable. Quality rest rebuilds the edge. Schedule light days and deload weeks. Nutrition. Favor real food, prioritize protein and vegetables, cut the easiest processed items first. Hydrate. Recovery makes the next sharpening possible. Measure readiness, not vanity. Track practical markers. Can you carry a load upstairs? Can you stand strong under stress for 60 seconds? Is your workday energy consistent? Use simple, repeatable checks instead of chasing aesthetics. Ritualize difficulty. Add 1 deliberate discomfort each week, a cold finish, an extra long walk, or an early morning training block. These are not punishments, they're inoculations against softness. A blunt blade cuts nothing. A sharp body frees the mind to act without hesitation. Keep the vessel ready. Small daily rules, consistent practice, wise recovery. That is how steel stays true under pressure. 3. Sharpen the spirit. But even the sharpest sword, wielded by the strongest arm, is useless if the spirit falters. This was Musashi's hidden edge, not just his technique, but his equanimity under pressure. He entered duels not as a gambler, but as a man at peace with the outcome. Sharpening the spirit means forging the capacity to remain still in the storm. This can come through meditation, prayer, silent walks, or deliberate solitude. These are not luxuries. They are the forge where courage is tempered. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps of World War II, gave us perhaps the clearest articulation of this practice. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That pause, the moment where anger could control you or fear could dictate you, is where the spirit reveals its sharpness. To sit with discomfort without fleeing, to hold the line when panic whispers, "Run." This is spirit sharpened. Even Musashi, after a lifetime of battle, turned to the brush, the chisel, and meditation. He painted, he carved, he wrote. Why? Because the spirit, like the blade, grows dull without practice. Calmness was his hidden weapon, as decisive as the cut of his sword. Together, these 3 practices, mind, body, spirit, form a complete blade. Neglect one, and you fight with a broken sword. Sharpen all 3, and you carry within you the same relentless posture that kept Musashi undefeated, ready for battle, steady in chaos, alive to every moment. Conclusion. Musashi's way is merciless in its demand, but merciful in its reward. Every day, sharpen or rust, there is no standing still. The sword either gleams or corrodes, the mind either grows clearer or more clouded. The spirit either steadies or falters. Neutrality is an illusion. Musashi himself wrote in the Book of 5 Rings, "Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men." That is the rhythm of sharpening, winning not against others, but against your own tendency toward decay. The poet Rumi captured this same truth when he urged, "Try to accept the changing seasons of your soul. With every sharpening, something is lost, and something greater is revealed." Sharpening is not painless. Steel meets stone, sparks fly, old habits fall away, comfort dies, but what emerges is leaner, cleaner, truer. When you sharpen your mind, you cut through confusion and self-deception. When you sharpen your body, you cut through weakness and fatigue. When you sharpen your spirit, you cut through fear, resentment, and despair. This is the legacy of Musashi, not a demand for perfection, but a call to relentless renewal. The blade you carry is not just a weapon, it is your very self. To neglect it is to invite defeat before the battle begins. To sharpen it is to live awake, unafraid, and prepared. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Do not waste the remainder of your life in thoughts about others when you do not refer your thoughts to some object of common utility." In other words, stop rusting in idle distraction. Direct yourself to the work that sharpens you. So ask yourself tonight, did you sharpen your blade today, or did you let it rust? Did you win the battle against yesterday's version of yourself, or did you surrender to stagnation? The answer is not trivial. It decides not only who you are now, but who you will become tomorrow. Sharpen the blade every day, for there is no other way.